movie channels at all?
Nope.
No, we don't.
We do have internet.
We do have the 2,000 movies in the other room. Who needs HBO? Who has time for HBO? All right, so those are the distinctions on those, and just deal with that. Yeah, Jake.
If we're okay moving on to the next.
Yes, we're okay. Moving on to the next one.
Do the first few lectures you went over like history of the First Amendment and also the things from J.S. Mills? Is that kind of stuff going to be on the test, or is it going to be more focused on later?
Not so much the history and background, and the stuff from J.S. Mill. Let's see, what do we have in there? You should know what kind of philosophy he's known for. You guys know that? Can you tell me? Somebody shout it out. That's what you need to know. Utilitarianism.
Do you know that for all of?
For a lot of them, for like the ones we went over in class, if you heard me mention their name in class, you should probably know with what kind of thing they are associated. If I mention something like, if I say Kant, what does that mean to you? Hopefully it means something at this moment. Was he a consequentialist or a non-consequentialist? Do you know the difference? And then he had his big thing. What was his thing? For Kant, do you remember? Anybody remember it yet? Hope nobody's taking the test tomorrow. Right? So if I start throwing things out like, the golden mean, which was not Kant, by the way, but this is the kind of things you should know. The golden mean, the categorical imperative, egoism, and you don't necessarily need to be able to write a treatise on these things, but know which of those philosophers that we discussed was associated with each.
So will there be like matching then?
So there would be like matching, like the quiz you saw.
Okay.
Exactly like the quiz you saw, actually. Except, I think the quiz had 5 names or something, and today's review quiz has a few more of those names and some matching. And the exam might have anywhere between 5 and 10. I don't know if we had as many as 10, so we'll see. But if you know that, if you can basically match, that is the level of sophistication you need to have here, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a survey class. So if you need to actually have an in-depth discussion about Machiavelli, then go to the sources and bone up. But you should be able to recognize that Machiavelli is one of these people who was he propounded egoism. That there really isn't any right and wrong except as it related to your own personal interests. That is something you would need to know, because people will often talk in shorthand, and that's what you need to be able to navigate those conversations. When someone talks about the social contract, you know what that is. That's when you are giving up some liberty in order to get some protections from the government. You don't need to know a lot more than that to not be stupid in that conversation. Or to not be lost, right? So that's where to make sure that you understand these concepts, because really, we have an entire class for a whole semester on just pieces at the law school of what we've gone over this semester. I mean, you'd have a whole class that dealt just with, say, the little piece of the First Amendment. We have entirely separate classes that deal with Western philosophical thought, or even those particular philosophers that were the progenitors of our constitutional system.
Can you go over some of the libel defenses? And I just remember there were some people that had more privileges than others with libel. Is that true? Or?
Privilege? More privileges to libel people?
I don't know if that's...
Well, let me walk through it this way.
Like liability.
You want to get?
I got it.
Okay, thanks. We do understand what libel is, right? You got the elements of your defamation case. So Brandon asked about defenses to libel. The very first defense to libel is what? The big one. Truth. Truth is the biggest defense. If what you say is true, guess what? Then you're not going to be on the hook for damages for defamation. And then when you walk through everything else, there are, let's see, how do they categorize it? It's the best way to break these things down. They talked about...
An absolute privilege.
Well, but when you're talking about those absolute privileges, those are in different categories. See, where are you? It's chapter, what, 5? Here, let me walk through and see if I can separate these things out. Because it's not like you get, there are things, how do I phrase this? I don't want to call them necessarily sort of defenses to libel. Often they go to whether or not they're really considered libel at all. So what's the part? You have to make a statement, and it has to be a statement of fact, a factual assertion. So then when you get to your defenses, you can have truth, which is whatever you say is true. The other defense is, it wasn't a statement of fact. It was what? Someone's opinion. So one of the other defenses is that I wasn't libeling you, that's just my opinion. Now, this one's a little twitchy. It's not automatically opinion just because you preface it with, in my opinion. No. You can say, in my opinion, and then make statements of fact, then they are statements of fact. Opinion really has to do with subjective types of things. In my opinion, those meatballs were the nastiest things I've ever eaten in my life. I can say that I made them. And I'm only kidding. I really don't think they're nasty. And I wasn't trying to poison you. But in point of fact, that's one of those things that is an opinion statement. And when you're measuring opinion, if you come across this and have to write whether or not someone has the defensive opinion, look for whether or not it's objectively verifiable. You really can't objectively verify nasty, because it's subjective. I think all those little cups of slime up there are nasty. Mayonnaise, mustard, I think they're poison, disgusting. But that's just me, right? You can't objectively verify whether something's nasty. I can objectively verify whether it's spoiled, right? I could serve spoiled food, you can verify that. You can get the Department of Health to close down my restaurant if I'm serving spoiled food. You can objectively verify whether or not there were rodents in the kitchen. There are no rodents in my kitchen. That's why I keep cats. No, but the whole point is, think of it that way. There's opinion, which is usually subjective, not verifiable, or it's a statement of fact, verifiable. That's one of the other defense things. So let's see, what else do we have here? Fair comment and criticism. That's the one you're going to get to when the person has put something out in the public to be evaluated or consumed. They are asking for someone in the public to consume it and speak about it. So if you open a restaurant, you're not going to be able to sue a restaurant critic who goes there and says your food is nasty. Again, nasty is an opinion, but also they're allowed to comment on your things in this way because you want them to. You really do want to get buzz out there. So you've got truth, opinion, fair comment and criticism. Oh, fair report, the fair reporting privilege. This might be one of the ones you're talking about with when have you privileged to write something. This one's a little bit trickier. When you're dealing with fair reporting, this applies if you are simply repeating or including in your articles or your newscasts news from another source, and those sources are limited to a few. Official documents like police reports, things that happen in official government proceedings like in court transcripts. They also included a wire service privilege. If you are here in Utah and you're getting something off the AP or the UPI about what's going on in Afghanistan, you're not in Afghanistan. You couldn't verify that even if you wanted to. And so to the extent that you are accurately reporting what you got from this other source, and you attribute the other source, and it is one of the listed allowed sources, which include the things that I just gave you, then you can claim the fair report privilege, even if what you report is inaccurate. So lots of technical qualifications there, but if you want to get them, go to chapter 5. 117. All right. Now, question.
Oh, well, I have a question about something
else.
Later,
so then there are a couple other things on the defenses that I just wanted to pull in here, which is don't get tricked because somebody else said it first. Right? If you repeat it, you're publishing the libel, and you can be just as liable for the libel. and it's kind of hard to do this when I'm speaking on the exam. It'll be easier because libel is the libel, the lies, the defamation is L-I-B-E-L. And whether or not you can be liable is L-I-A, you know, so liable. So when you're reading it, you're not going to be confused. In this room, it may be a little confusing sometimes, yeah.
But isn't, if someone else posts it first and they're a reliable source or a reliable news outlet?
What are you going for? Are you going for fair report privilege?
Yeah, kind of. Like,
If you're going to go for fair report privilege, make sure you get these qualifications down, which is that you're going to have your official government source, police reports, court transcripts, or your wire service. Otherwise, no. If somebody else just wrote an article for the Salt Lake Trib, and you read the article and you started repeating what was in the article,
or what if it was more like reliable, like New York Times or USA Today or something?
it's
like that?
you're still deviating from what they officially protect.
What if AP put it out?
If it's an AP wire service, then you're covered. They've got wire service privileges, but that's pretty much wire service privileges because they don't allow all the reporters to go to the places where these people are. If it's an AP UPI news report, then yeah, you can repeat what the wire service told you, but you still need to jump through all the hoops. You need to accurately repeat what they've said, put it in context, and you have to attribute the source. You say, from AP or from the UPI, you have to attribute it. If you take credit for it, if you forget to say you got it from AP or UPI, you could be on the hook. And you will lose your fair report privilege. And the fair report privilege does not cover something you heard some classmates say yesterday. Ever. Somebody said, dang it. No, but it doesn't cover any of that kind of stuff. All right? Now, anything else on this one, on your libel? Okay, we're moving on to your next question then, Kathleen.
Can we go over torts?
Do you want to keep that?
Like,
Yeah, I'm not going to keep
You can keep it just for.
Oh, well, I may
Yeah,
ask
just
for it
a
again if we get a question on number for something. All of your invasion of privacy torts,
yes.
because, you know, torts is another whole class at law school, but for the purposes of this class, she wants to focus on the invasion of privacy torts. And we covered a few of those. We covered harassment, and for harassment, you want to look for repeated actions. Somebody is always following you, stalking you. Every time you open their door, they're there. So if you, clue words for harassment will be repeated numerous times. That's what you're going to look for in the question if harassment is a possible issue here. All right. One of the other ones was, let's see, invasion of privacy. You had fraud and misrepresentation. And those came in to play when you misrepresent yourself or your purpose in order to be invited